Hello, friends of ABCs of Politics and Culture. Thank you for joining us today. Seated next to me is Bob Donahue, who is an elected official within our county's Republican group, which means that I'm stuck with him outside of this podcast as well. It's not too bad, though, as he brings life to the party by thinking outside of the box and constantly playing the devil's advocate. As far away from me as he can get is Charlie Meadows, of which this podcast is his brainchild. As the father and former president of the Oklahoma Conservative Action Committee, Charlie needed a place to focus his energy and brought me to this podcast along with him, and it's a real honor. We're blessed to have Dave Bond with us today, who serves as vice president for advocacy at the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. Since 2011, Dave has advocated at the Oklahoma Capitol on issues of free enterprise, limited government, and individual initiative. He has been referred to in the Tulsa world as a prominent Oklahoma anti-tax lobbyist. Prior to advocacy, Dave worked in Oklahoma elections. A graduate of Oklahoma State University, Dave and his wife Marcia have 2 sons and live in Oklahoma City. Hello, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for what you do, Dave.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we get really started with the substance of this, and we'll be showing this this flyer that OCPA has published
I
here.
like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. And we're going to be discussing probably the most dangerous issue that will be on our ballot, that we've had on a ballot. This is June 16th, that we've had on a ballot since we legalized quote unquote medical marijuana a number of years ago.
Yeah.
This is an issue, if it passes, will affect every single Oklahoman and will be very destructive to our economy and particularly very bad for people on a fixed income. But before we jump into that, I want everyone to know that Dave's grandmother, Joanne Mowdy, was one of the first people that I met when I started getting involved in politics, and she mentored me along with another lady, mentored me, and that was about 40 years ago or something to that nature. And so anyway, I've always have a warm spot in my heart for your grandmother.
Thank you. Me too.
And then you are a part of OCPA Action. Tell us a little bit about the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, who and what they are, and what the difference of the action wing of that is compared to what just the organization is.
Thank you. Yes, so the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, OCPA, has been around since 1993. We're a 501c3 nonprofit public policy organization focused on free markets, limited government, individual initiative, and strong families. We do a lot of stuff at the state capitol,
Right.
And elsewhere in the state as well. We like low taxes. We're big fans of school choice, parents getting the chance to be more in charge of their child's education. And we also engage sometimes in ballot questions that are of great significance. We also engaged some on the judicial retention votes that were on the ballot about 2 years ago.
You made a difference there, my friend.
Well, I think a lot of people did. I've never seen something quite like that before. You guys were a part of that as well. And through OCPA Action, which is a 501c4, we do engage in advocacy-related stuff, both at the state capitol, but also on some things related to the ballot, like the judicial retention stuff, like State Question 832. Also, we're blessed to be part of an effort to, as you all were as well, to encourage Oklahomans not to sign to put something on the ballot over the past few months. State Question 836, which came short on signatures and would have brought California's election system to our state if it had made it to the ballot and passed.
A jungle primary.
Jungle primary.
Yeah.
Right, but we still do have another potential import from California that's potentially, well, that is on the ballot in June, State Question 832, and that would bring California's job-killing, price-hiking minimum wage structure to our state.
Yeah. So let's get into that just a little bit and kind of explain the content of this flyer right here. And is there a website people can go to and download this flyer?
Thank you. Yes, all this information is at SQ832killsjobs.com, SQ832killsjobs.com.
Okay.
And we're working every day to make sure that Oklahomans know two things. Most importantly, State Question 832 is going to be on the ballot in June.
Right.
They got the signatures over a year ago. Governor Stitt had the option to determine which ballot it would be on.
Right.
And he chose the June 2026 primary
Primary.
ballot. So when folks go to vote in the primaries for governor, for U.S. Senate, which is now open, for congressional races, local offices, in June, this will be on their ballot as well.
Right.
That's very, very important for people to know. It's the only
Right.
it's the only state question on the June
Right.
ballot. There's only one. June is not typically when we do a ton of ballot questions, but
Right.
there have been some really big ones that have been on a June ballot.
That's right.
Medical marijuana
That's
was
right.
one.
It was.
8 years ago. The Obamacare Medicaid expansion was on there 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And now this one. This is the first one since then that's been on a June ballot, but it's incredibly significant. And we want to make sure folks know a few things about State Question 832.
Yeah.
One, we want them to know that this does bring California's minimum wage structure to our state. It goes up to $15 an hour
First 4 years.
within 2.5 years. By January 1st of 2029, the minimum wage in Oklahoma
Okay.
will have more than doubled to $15 an hour.
Right.
But it does not stop there.
That's the really dangerous part of it.
That's the part that
Yeah.
folks often are not aware of. It will continue going up year after year after year based on the U.S. Department of Labor's CPI index for major U.S. cities. So the biggest cities in the country are the ones that will be used to determine how much the minimum wage goes up that small businesses in Oklahoma have to pay, regardless of industry and regardless of so
Yeah.
many other factors, regardless of whether they can keep up or not.
Yeah.
And it will be based on what the cost of living is in those biggest U.S. cities. So
And for our viewers, what is CPI?
the CPI, the federal government has a bunch of different
Consumer
CPI
Price Index.
indexes, Consumer Price Index. They're basically cost of living indexes. They have a bunch of different ones, and the one they have chosen will be the one that is based off of what the cost of living is in Chicago, in New York City, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco.
So our minimum wage will be tied to the rapid rise of their minimum wages in those cities, correct?
There are minimum wages, but also all the other things that politicians in those places do to increase the cost of living on their
Yeah.
citizens. So every time California passes something to increase environmental regulations unnecessarily that cause the price of utilities and fuel to go up.
It's
that
not
would
just
be-
California, it's New
It's
York.
not just California.
New York City.
Yeah, it's New
I
York
believe they
City.
have a socialist running that city, do they not? Right
Well,
now?
he is certainly wanting to raise a lot of costs, including taxes. Every time a liberal, one
Yes.
of those major liberal cities raises
I think
taxes,
he
it will
admits
go
to
into
being a
this.
socialist, though.
He does.
Yeah.
He's not ashamed.
And just to back up a little bit to what you said, it's pretty well known that Oklahoma has one of the best cost of living, rates in the nation.
Yes.
And so it's really
Yeah.
completely backwards to. People move here because
Yeah.
of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
So
So, just to say, after this first 2.5 years is over with, after it gets to $15 an hour, it could be as little as 10 years before our minimum wage in Oklahoma is up to $30 an hour or more.
If you use the Biden years as the inflationary measurement, then it will be to $30 within about 15 years. It will be very, very quick. Now, people would say, well, that won't happen again. Well, it just did a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Yes.
But also, how does that then...
And inflation is going back up right now, primarily because of the war that we're in right now. And
inflation has
such.
gradually been ticking up for most
Yeah.
of my life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to go up some regardless. But we're not going to be basing Oklahoma's minimum wage and the small business impacts of that on the cost of living here.
Right.
There are no Oklahoma cities on that particular CPI index.
Right.
It's just the big ones run by liberal politicians.
I won't say we don't have some socialists in city government here. We certainly have a couple in Oklahoma City on the council.
You got to have one or two. Right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
America. Everybody's got to be.
Well, I think we'd
represented.
be better off without them, but we do have a couple here, but they don't rule. They're not in a majority.
Right,
Is
right.
what I'm trying to say, and so we tend to be far more conservative here than those other places, but we're going to be joined to the hip with them,
Yeah.
and whatever they do, we're going to be the ones that suffer for that.
Right.
And so.
Right. So, how does that then play out with folks across Oklahoma. How does it play out with small business? It's going to hammer small business.
Yeah.
The small businesses so the three states that have been doing this the longest are those three West Coast states: California, Oregon, and Washington. They're the ones who've had a regularly increasing minimum wage in place tied to some type of cost of living index for a decade or more. Most of the other states that have done it, like in this part of the country, like Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, they've just passed it within the last 5 years or so. And so if we want to look at states that have been doing it for a while and how's it worked out there, those are the three states, some of those West Coast states that we have to look at. And in those places, it's hammering small businesses. Small businesses are having to cut the hours or the benefits of their employees. Many of them are closing down as well. It left a lot of them incredibly vulnerable to COVID. When COVID hit, when those businesses were the first to go because they weren't national. They couldn't spread that cost out everywhere else. And so the big guys, when they are faced with this cost, the big national and international corporations, they just accelerate more automation, replace humans with machines all that much faster.
Right.
They're already doing that at some level already, but this is encouraging those companies to do it even faster. I was at a McDonald's in California, Los Angeles area, a little over a year ago. There were a whole lot fewer humans that I could see working in that McDonald's.
They have those
than
kiosks.
very kiosk
from
based,
there, or
yes.
you app everything.
Or you can do it on your phone.
Yeah.
But compared to an Oklahoma McDonald's, you have a person there to take your order and wild things like that. Those are employment for people. In California, they're doing less of that because of these added costs. It's just the reality of things. No good employer wants to let a good employee go. But at some point, to keep the business open, you have to make those tough decisions.
Right.
And so the fact...
Some small businesses, either their family will have to run it, or they'll go out of business.
That's the way it's going. We have relatives out in California who said, as soon as the minimum wage stuff really started ramping up and then COVID happened, boom. All our favorite places that weren't national chains were gone very, very fast.
Well, even the national chains, or at least some chains, when California, a year and a half, 2 years ago, raised their minimum wage to $20 an hour for restaurant workers, I believe.
Fast food.
There were, an estimated 2 million jobs lost in the state of California. And and there were several regional chains that just went out of business.
Sure.
It just didn't exist any longer. And I'll tell you, folks, this is real. I went on a trip last year. We left here August 29th. We were gone for almost a month. And when we left, I could buy a large iced tea at McDonald's, even though I'd have to tell them every time I'm not using the app, but I could do it for $1.35. I got to California, and that same large cup of iced tea was $2.85, more than double. Wow. And so that's the effect, that's the inflationary effect that this has on people.
Yeah. By no means is this the only bad economic decision that politicians in those West Coast states have made, but it's a really, really big one, particularly in how it affects small businesses and the people who work at them.
Well, I have a couple questions, if it's all right, David. I want to make sure you got your thoughts expressed. Have you? Is there anything else you want to bring out? You brought a number of angles.
You're good. Else? We're good. I need a drink.
All right, take your sip. Take your sip. I can understand. I've heard on the news that the Democrats are closing their primary this particular time around. All right, it's not going to be open.
To independents, yeah.
Right. Well, yeah.
Right.
That's they're closing it to Republicans.
they've kept it close to them for a while. Yeah.
The jungle isn't around anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious if it's related to this because they want to squeeze independents out of the. No, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. But do they actually want to deny independents the ability to vote on this particular state question? Why go out and vote at all? Even if you can't vote on a state question, why go vote at all if you can't vote on people because you're an independent? So is this, do you know if closing a primary might be a means of squelching a vote?
So I think that particular issue is kind of double-edged for some folks. When that deadline passed, in which the parties had to let the state board of or the state election board know if they wanted to allow independents to vote in their primaries was late in the fall, right around or maybe right after the time that signatures were starting to be gathered for State Question 836, the California jungle primary proposal. And that deadline passed, and the Democrat Party had not turned their stuff in. They had been pretty consistently allowing independents to vote in their primaries. In
Well, they
previous
have
cycles.
historically, right? No
the
doubt.
past-
about it.
think
Only
10
for about
years,
6
maybe?
years,
Is it
8
6 years?
something like that.
It's not been terribly long.
Yeah, it
Do you
wasn't
think they
terribly
might
long.
be attempting to squelch the vote on a matter like
no,
this?
No. Here's what happened, I believe, Bob. 25 years ago, you wouldn't believe the imbalance of registration in Oklahoma. Democrats had far more people registered in Oklahoma than Republicans. Today, it is absolutely the opposite of that.
Sure.
And the Democrat Party was declining like you cannot believe. And just think, there was a time that every 4 registered voters that died, 3 of them were Democrats at one point in time. And so to try to stop the bleeding, they opened that up to independents. So, and they were hoping that the independents would appreciate what the Democrats had done, and they were hoping that the independents would register as Democrats. Well, that wasn't working, so there was really not much reason for this to continue on.
So you think that it's likely coincidence, is what you're saying, Charlie?
Yeah.
It's nothing deliberate.
No.
It's maybe that's just my cynical blood kind of wondering.
Yeah, well,
and it's difficult. To
We
get
know what
other motives.
conspiracy theorist you are, Bob.
Just being a devil's advocate. All right, next question, and
See
that
what
is.
I mean?
Well, I enjoy being devil's advocate. What do you say?
We've had more long conversations with him playing the devil's advocate.
All right. Let me ask an obvious question leading into this. We talk about the idea of fixed income.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, you mentioned that just now. The whole idea of those in fixed
Yeah.
income
Yeah.
are not going to be able to absorb all these price increases. Do you know if the minimum wage is locked into the CPI, will Social Security benefits be locked into the CPI at the same time? Have you heard about that?
Now, I believe Social Security does go up based on the CPI as well. So I think that's already in place, but determined at the federal level, if that's what you mean.
Well,
It's tied to
Or do you
something.
mean like additional acceleration?
is it tied the same way? Because
It's cost of living increase is what Social Security is.
yeah, cost of living increase.
Yeah.
Well, okay. If
How
so-
that's determined, I'm not sure.
It's by a CPI. One of the CPIs.
minimum wage is like $8 and change, right?
$7.25.
7.25.
Oh, $7.25, and we're
That's the
talking
federal.
about
That's the federal level.
we're talking about doubling that
Yeah.
over the next few years. Will and hence the price of your iced tea.
Over double in 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than double.
And then
in that
continuing to go up
Right,
year after
right.
year after
and
year.
then it hooks on to this rocket ship that starts taking off.
Right, and I have a feeling Social Security won't likely match that. Is that your point?
Absolutely not.
All right, so they're not tied into the same
No,
index.
no.
So those in a fixed income are going to struggle.
Going to be in trouble because
And,
everything's going
might
to
have
cost.
to find a new
here is
supplier for your
another
iced tea.
thing to consider, because I used to actually, I was on a speaker's tour back when George W. Bush was reelected for a second term, and he wanted to try to privatize Social Security for some.
Sure.
And I had a plan to do that, and actually, don't remember his name now, but for a while he was president of OCPA, came and heard my presentation, and he went back. There was an advertising agency in Oklahoma City that was hired to promote this for the state of Oklahoma.
Mike Carnuccio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Carnuccio.
Yeah.
And he heard my presentation, he liked it, he went back to this Saxon Advertising.
Sure.
He said, this guy's got it down. So they paid me to go on a speaker's tour, and I went to various, not Lions, but Rotary clubs, mostly where I went.
Okay.
I went over to Tulsa once, and the regional director of the Rotary clubs was there, And so anyway, I was speaking on this in an attempt to save Social Security.
Yeah.
So, but now none of that went anywhere because President Bush only created half a plan, which allowed the Democrats to jump on it and represent it as something he never intended for it to be.
Sure.
And so it basically destroyed it. But anyway, it was very interesting. And at that time, I could tell you that somewhere between 1932 and 1935, we were projected to have paid back all of the $2 trillion that had been borrowed from Social Security. And at that point in time, there wasn't anything left to pay it back. And we were either going to have to take about a 30% cut in Social Security benefits to keep it solvent, or Congress was going to have to come up with some other way to keep Social Security solvent. So anytime you force Social Security up, you shorten the time before it's insolvent.
Sure.
And that's not that far off. So this again, pressure every way you can get. That's why I call it affordability. What is the big thing that Democrats have been trying to rake President Trump over? His bad economic policies have not made things affordable.
Sure.
And so anyway, that's kind of the buzzword now.
I think it is really good when you look at those 3 states that have been doing minimum wage the longest for a decade or more, like State Question 832 would do it, and see what kind of prices citizens in those places have to deal with on essentials, food, fuel, housing, childcare, all those things. When you look at most of them, it's more than double what it is for people in Oklahoma on average, whether it's apartment rental, whether it's buying a house, whether it is fuel for your car, whether it's childcare. On grocery prices, those 3 states that have been doing minimum wage like this the longest, annual increases year after year after year, are the 3 highest average grocery price states in the country, groceries and food. And Oklahoma is literally one of the 3 lowest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally that far
Our cost of
apart.
living is low in Oklahoma.
Well, but particularly on, it is,
Yes.
and particularly on groceries.
Yeah.
Groceries and food. Whether you're buying food at the grocery store or whether you're going to a restaurant or whatever it is,
Yeah.
those states that have been doing minimum wage like this for a decade or more are literally the 3 highest in the country. I'm glad we took Washington State's basketball team. I think we've taken enough
Other
from them.
Sonics, eh?
I don't think we need to take anything else from them.
Well, and anything like this, any tax that I've ever seen raised or, this sort of issue, they always play on people's emotions. And they
Sure.
always want to say that we want to help the young families and the struggling elderly people. And I think what the general public fails to realize is that you never can raise a minimum wage without the product coming up as well.
Right.
And that's just their open gate to jack the prices up as high as they want to. And then again, it becomes less affordable even though that income is higher. And that's the message that we really need to get out to the people, because again, we want to help the children. That's always the first thing. We want to help people get their medicine and their groceries and be able to pay their rent. And we have, single moms out on the streets, and they really play on those emotions. And Oklahoma people have to wake up and understand that when those minimum wages go up, the cost of living is going to go up exponentially, and we're going to be like those states where people are really struggling.
Now, you hear this, Dave.
Okay.
Aya now is being the mean, ornery conservative who's only worried about her own wallet and keeping her own money. All right? You see, she obviously doesn't care about the poor. They have, I'm being sarcastic here, but you get the idea, right? Now, you're kind of coming across this way too, so I want to give you a chance to redeem yourself.
Okay.
All right? I really do, because it's an open forum. What about the poor? What is your plan if this is not a good solution? What's your plan for taking care of the poor? Doesn't everyone deserve health care for free? Doesn't everyone deserve a decent living wage so they can afford rent, and all that? What is your solution?
According to the Oklahoman, they do.
Well, there you go.
As they favor this deal.
Right.
We'll go into that later.
Well, I just asked the question now.
Yeah.
So, don't be mean and ornery like Aya here, okay? What is your answer to that?
So I think it is a really good question. Who is a big minimum wage increase like this supposed to help? It's supposed to help the working poor, the folks at the low end of the wage scale.
Starting learning, usually young people. Starting
Well,
to learn.
sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to look at those states that have been doing minimum wage like this the longest. How has it worked out there? And so when you look at those states, some people see an increase in pay when this goes in. Folks down at the low end of the wage scale. Those are the ones who got to keep their jobs or didn't have their hours slashed. What typically happens in these other states that have been doing this a decade or more, not in Missouri and Arkansas because they've only had it in place for a year or two, but in these West Coast states, California, Oregon, Washington, that have been doing it a decade or more, if it's a small business, either the employee's hours is often slashed, so they got to keep their job, they're making more per hour, their paycheck actually went down compared to what it was before.
Right.
Or let's say you have 3 people working in motel hospitality. And this is a real life example from folks we know in California who have lived through this since they put this in place. Okay, you got 3 people doing these jobs. I'm talking room service hospitality. And okay, of the 3, 1 lost their job. So it didn't really work out well for them when
right.
the pay went up. The other 2 got to keep their job, but now they're doing the work of the 3rd person. So they're getting paid more at the end of the month. That's great. They're seeing their family less. There's nothing in State Question 832 that says if you're a low-wage worker, you get to keep your job, or you will not have your hours slashed, or you won't be replaced with a kiosk, or anything like that. It just says if you're an hourly worker, you'll get paid at least $15 an hour. And then it will keep going up after that. That's all it says. It applies across so many levels too. It's full-time and part-time. It applies to part-time employees. It's regardless of age. It applies to teenagers and students who are entering the workforce.
Right.
It applies to senior citizens who just want to have a part-time job to stay active, which is a very healthy thing.
Yeah.
It applies to every industry of the state. It applies to all regions of the state. So it applies the same in Gotebo as it does in Midtown Oklahoma City, where the cost of living is obviously higher, and we need to keep people employed.
Gotebo is in Oklahoma, folks.
It is in Oklahoma. Yes. But that's the crazy thing about this. Politicians in San Francisco will literally be, through their actions year after year, determining what the minimum wage is in Gotebo.
Yes.
That is how this will work.
That's right. That's right.
So as far as what it does for low wage and working poor folks, it makes entry-level work less available to them. It increases the risks of them losing their job, at least if it plays out how it has in these other states that have been doing it for a decade or more. Just like on the prices, I think we have to look and see how has it actually worked out in the real world.
Yeah. And those 2 that, in that example you gave, the 2 that get to keep their job, they have more money in their pocket, but everything they have to buy costs more.
The costs are going. There's no exemption for you on the
That's
price
right.
increases that go up in State Question 832. There's also no penalty on an employer if after 832 passes they replace you with automation and put in a kiosk and let 2 or 3 people go.
Yeah.
There's no penalty for that
So you're
employer
worried
for
about
doing that.
AI taking everybody's jobs, eh? Doesn't that make you Luddite, worry about technology coming along? And I'm trying to be the devil's advocate.
No, yeah, I've been to a McDonald's in California within the past year and a half, and I've been to a McDonald's in Oklahoma in the past year and a half, and I've seen the difference.
Yeah,
There's more people working at the one, per customer in Oklahoma than the one in California. That's
Yes.
how it has played out in the real
And
world.
just so you guys know, I've spent a lot of time in the hospital in the last 6 months. There's a robot at Mercy Hospital delivering food now,
Oh my goodness.
going up and down the elevator and carrying food.
I was in a restaurant recently here in Oklahoma City, a brand new restaurant, and they had robots bringing the food out to the table.
Wow.
And as it did, the people were starting to get their food off of the tray, and a waitress ran up and said, no, I'll put that, so put it there. And then the robot would go to a table that people had left, and the wait person would put the empty plates on the robot, and then the robot would take it back to the kitchen.
This was
Do
in
they share
Oklahoma?
This is in Oklahoma City. Yeah.
Do they share tips?
I know.
So
Maybe we should have said that.
in 2016, My wife and I spent all summer in Western Canada and Alaska. We were gone for 97 days. And while we were in Canada a lot, and I began to ask people that I thought, primarily in restaurants and fast food, like Kentucky Chicken, they have that up there, and McDonald's and different ones. I began to ask them, thinking they were probably minimum wage people. And up there, the minimum wage varied from provinces to provinces, and it was generally $15 to $17 an hour, some from cities to cities. And I'd ask them this: every time you've received a minimum wage increase, have prices gone up? Every one of them said yes. I asked about a dozen people this, and every one of them said yes. So then I asked them the next question. Well, even though you have more money in your pocket, if everything you had to buy costs more, are you any better off? Now, I basically gave them the answer, but none of them could come up with that answer. They just simply said, well, I have more money.
Yes.
They only saw it as good because they had more money. They couldn't, compute that to the fact that you have more money, but you're not better off because the prices went up.
Well, and prices will go up on everybody.
Yes, everybody.
Whether you see a wage increase from 832 or not, whether you lose your job because of 832 or not. And it does usually take a little while for the job losses to pan out.
Yeah.
You have to, most small businesses, most big businesses, if they have a good employee, they want to do everything they can to keep them,
Yes.
even if the circumstances
Yes.
change, even if the cost of keeping them employed changes. But eventually, it's their responsibility to keep the doors open, and they have to make those tough decisions.
So while our legal minimum wage in Oklahoma is $7.25, basically the entry level job is $10 to $12 an hour.
Often higher, yeah.
The market said, back during COVID, their entry level, they were paying $15 an hour at that time because they just couldn't get the help.
Yeah,
And,
and
so-
I think that's a really good point too. My wife and I have 2 teenage sons. We appreciate your thoughts and prayers. So a 15 and a 13. The 15-year-old, he'll turn 16 soon. He wants to work. I think that's a wonderful thing. Thank God we've raised a 15-year-old who wants to work.
Right.
There's a lot of 15-year-olds right now who would rather not.
Want to live in mom and daddy's house until they're
Or play video games.
Whatever they can get away with. So I want this to continue to be a state where entry-level work is available for young people.
Yes.
For second chance people. That is a really, really good thing. And the states that don't have that, the states where that is going away, those are the states that are going to really have some problems.
Actually, let me back that up a little bit, using my own son as an example, because we were discussing this whole topic of the increase in the minimum wage and his history. He just recently graduated from UCO,
Okay.
and got his bachelor's degree. But when he started out, he was working at one of your local pizza places, a franchise, and he was making $10 an hour. And we were helping him to pay the bills to get through college and all, so that he could graduate debt free. And at one point in time, he switched over, moved over to one of the big box stores on the retail end, and he had a significant increase, over 50%. All right, to help pay the bills, but he had the ability to do that, so he advanced, so to speak, and continued to work the character development while going through college, trying to balance all that workload and come out the other end debt free. And he contributed significantly towards his own education. He paid a large chunk of his own tuition, saving that money. Now, if it just automatically jumps up, fewer people are getting hired just to get to that first position.
Yes.
I don't see him being able to do it, in the same fashion. How can he start out? What's an entry-level position look like for a college student just working part-time, trying to make a few dollars? Instead, that trap of student loans, excessive student loans, becomes an even greater temptation, greater dependence on government or even parents.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's how do people work through that? And at the same time, price of goods and everybody goes up. It is it's culture changing, not just price changing. Let's put it that way. That's my point on that.
You know, Charlie, something that you mentioned was that these people that you spoke to in Canada, they didn't understand that more money, you know, in their pocket was,
Does
they
no
were
good
blinded
if-
to the
yeah,
prices.
yeah.
But then on the flip side, you saying that your son wants to work at 15. I think that right there is the key topic, and that goes all the way back to the education issue that we talked about, school choice, is that when we train our children to work and we don't hand them everything, that's why those people can't see that.
Right.
And then, you know, so it's really important for parents that have these kids, and it starts when they're little. You can't at the age of 13 or 15 or 17 now start teaching a child to work. So I commend you on that. And then to what you said a while ago, I was a single mom for 17 years. So I do see the flip side of trying to raise, and I put myself through 2 degrees during that time. So I see the flip side of, you know, the people who want more money. But the awesome thing about this country, and particularly Oklahoma, is that this is the land of opportunity. You know, I was born and raised in Japan, and once you choose your career, you don't ever leave that career. If you become a doctor and you
Japan.
decide this is not my cup of tea, too bad for you. That's where you are, and that's where you stay. But in my 17 years of single parenting, I mean, I was hustling. You know, there were all sorts of ways. Charlie mentioned the other day that he saw me in all these commercials.
Right.
That was, those I considered bonuses. You never
TV
knew
commercials, yeah.
when one was going to come your way, and that was a bonus, you know. But again, unless a person is working and paying for their own, you know, field trips or their own taco when they go out, or their own gas money. My parents didn't buy me a car. They didn't pay my gas. They didn't pay my insurance. I did all of that. And that's when you start realizing $15 an hour in my pocket is fantastic, but my burger just went to $5 that used to be $2. And so unless you're working, you're not going to understand that, you know, from a young age.
And as young people start off, oftentimes I worked at McDonald's. I worked at several restaurants when I was young, and I learned skills. I learned work habits, and so I got better jobs and better jobs and better jobs.
Right.
And that's the idea of minimum wage. Get you started, but there's discipline to learn. There's work ethic, work habits, all kinds of things to learn. And you know, some people weren't taught that by their parents, or definitely not by our government schools.
But then you became your own boss, right, Charlie?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And I was
Self-employed,
I was
started
in
your own
the
business.
window cleaning business for 44 years.
Yeah.
And but I was going to say one thing here on this flyer. Again, you have this QR code.
Yes, sir.
down
Thank
here.
you.
And if you log into this QR code, there will be many articles that OCPA has published, written by this. Ray Carter is probably the best investigative journalist in the state of Oklahoma, in my opinion, and he works for OCPA.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, he's and really this is something that I pulled off the internet that Ray had written.
Oh, okay.
Right here, and it goes into the fact that there's actually some socialist organizations that have promoted this thing.
Yeah.
And
Imagine
there's-
that.
Yeah.
And
That's
there's
true.
actually some billionaires that basically hate America that have funded this effort to get this on the ballot.
It appears so.
And
yeah.
and that's what people don't understand. This is not intended to do good for anyone. This is something that socialists that hate America and want to see America change would promote to create problems to move
destroy
us
us.
closer to socialism.
To
I'm telling you, this is the most dangerous thing that we will vote on since 8 years ago when we voted on medical marijuana, which never was medical at the time.
It was certainly more than medical, and in the same way, I mean, this is a whole lot more than a one-time minimum wage increase.
Yeah.
It doubles up to $15 an hour, and then it keeps going, whether small businesses can keep up with that or not. And it also applies regardless of industry, regardless of size of the business. There is a provision in the fine print of State Question 832 that says it will not apply to businesses with less than 10 employees unless that business does gross business of $100,000 or more in a year. That's
not a lot of business.
Gross?
That's gross.
$100,000?
Yeah.
Can anybody afford to have employees if their gross is less?
Well, and that's the thing, right? So our estimation is that using the available data to us from the feds and the state, more than 8 out of 10 small businesses will be directly affected by this, and basically the only ones that won't will be the ones where it's just the owner, a sole proprietor situation.
Right. Okay. All right, David, a question for you on this. I think about the ripple effect, the second and third order implications of this. For example, universal basic income. If you have enough people that now can't find work, they can't get started. So there's they've got to eat. They need some kind of money, right? Do you see this impacting that concept of UBI?
I think what you mentioned a minute ago is for certain an increased level of government dependency.
Yeah.
When you look at the states that have been doing this the longest, California in particular, California has the highest unemployment of any state in the U.S., the highest. Over 30% higher than Oklahoma's, and Oregon and Washington are both in the top 10 for highest unemployment. So it will increase government dependency when people at the low end of the wage scale lose their jobs instead of advancing up through the wage scale as they're currently on trajectory to do.
Right.
Well, is that such a bad thing, dependent on the government?
I believe so. It means
You
dependency.
know what the cost of homelessness is, Bob, in California?
I think he's back to his devil's advocate thing.
See? I wasn't kidding.
You gotta,
I enjoy my role. Just
you gotta
so
watch out for it. I mean, it puts that burden on taxpayers. I think if we want, there's lots of different policies that affect whether someone's on a government dependency track or not, being dependent on themselves and God as opposed to being dependent on government. If someone's dependent on government, there's somehow more cost to taxpayers as a result of that. I think you often see a lot of additional really bad personal ramifications for that person as well. And again, for second chance folks too, people needing to re-enter the workforce after prison time or whatever the case may be. This is a big effect on those types of jobs as well. There's a lot of businesses out there who are willing to participate in second chance hiring programs.
Yes.
But if the cost keeps going up and up and up and up to do that, that becomes harder and harder to do for a small business.
It's changing the culture is the impact of this.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I like the way you put that, the idea of relying on yourself
I
and
like
God.
that too.
Right? That is so critically important because in the end, this will be Christian killing, so to speak. The whole Christian culture and premise. All right, let's try another angle on this. I met some during the Cold War, or really as the wall was falling. Okay, actually just after. Okay, there were some Russians that came over to America and got to know them a little bit. All right, and and I was asking questions. Quite a bit of a younger man at that point, and I'm asking questions. And about, what is life like in the USSR, at that time. And and one of the ideas that came out was guaranteed full employment. Okay? 0% unemployment rate. Because if somebody wanted to build a building, what the government would do is tell whoever's building it, here's the number of employees you have for these various categories. They told the builder how many people are going to be employed. That way they could guarantee employment. And the impact on all that was the value of their labor was actually going down because they were not really being productive. And the way they explained that to me was, they said, they pretend to pay us, we pretend to work. That was their phrase. And so there is that other side of it. UBI is basically being paid not to work. On the other hand, we can pretend to work and pretend to get paid. All this government influence on the market, and it's ultimately the only thing it can do is really tear it down. Okay, because somebody has to pay the price, and it demoralizes people. So people quit being productive, and we gradually turn into a third world country because of our good intentions. I just rambled on there. But do you have any thoughts to add to that, or what do you think?
I think it's a good reminder that if State Question 832 passes, it applies to pretty much everything.
Yes.
Regardless of age, regardless of level of education. If you've worked to get a degree or skill training to better yourself, it applies to you. And also if you didn't. Any level of experience. Anywhere you are in the state. There's only 2 real exemptions as far as industries that will not have to abide by this. One is federal government employees, which kind of makes sense, you know. The other one is state government employees, and that's a new thing that's being written into Oklahoma's minimum wage law with State Question 832, is that it will not apply to state employees.
Oh, they enjoy the benefits of
And
free
not city
enterprise.
either, right? City.
Well, so I'm glad you asked
County
that.
does, but
It will apply to city and county government
Okay,
employees,
okay.
which will raise the costs for city and county government,
Yeah.
and will increase the possibility of having to raise taxes, either sales or property taxes, which are the 2 taxes that cities and counties are allowed to collect. So I think it's a good reminder that it is pretty much across the board, wherever you are in Oklahoma, this is going to apply to you, whether you have developed skills, whether you haven't, whether you've gotten education, whether you haven't, whether you've had experience or you don't. It will apply in all those situations.
And there's another piece to that, and I think I credit this part of understanding this to being raised in another country. When you go the route that you're speaking of, you also lose the competitive edge because everyone's
Sure.
paid the same. It doesn't matter if you're the best surgeon, all of your patients die. You're literally paid the same, and that takes away people's desire and pride in being the best at their job because there's no reason to be. And that is something I really see as a problem with socialism and communism, which is what we don't have here. Competition is good.
Yes.
And
Yes.
exactly what you said is where you lose that. The question I had for you is you have 78 days until June 16th.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering what your organization is doing to get this message out and what we could be doing. I know we're doing this, but the average citizen out there who understands this concept, what can we be doing to make a difference on June 16th?
Well, thank you for that. So at OCPA, we're going all over the state, talking to groups of various shapes and sizes about State Question 832. First and foremost, making sure people know it's going to be on the ballot in June. It's going to be on there. It's the only state question you're going to see when you vote in the primary for governor and all these other things. It will be on the ballot in June.
Oh, that's the only question?
It's the only state question
June.
in June. Yeah.
In June.
There
Oh,
may-
June, yeah.
There may be some later this year in the August and November
I'm just thinking
ballots.
June.
Just
Yeah.
June. Yep, that's all I'm focused on right now. And so that's the first thing. And then just to make sure they know the facts about it and how it's played out in other states that have been doing it that way on their minimum wage for a while. I also work for another group called People for Opportunity that does a lot of additional public communications on state questions from time to time. And we'll be doing a lot of stuff through that organization to make sure that folks see that message in lots of different places, TV, all the fun things.
Now, the marijuana bill brought out, do any of you know the percentage of voters that came out that June?
It was a very heavy participation on
Okay.
that 2018
Do you-
June ballot.
very
yeah.
large number of people that had never voted before
Yes.
also.
Yes.
A lot of undervoting too. Actually, it was kind of upward voting. They voted on that thing at the very end and then left everything else above that blank. It was very unusual.
Are you feeling that this is going to bring that kind of thing, or are people kind of immune to this right now, or what are you seeing?
You tend to see it in a June primary less participation overall. Somewhere in the neighborhood of half as much participation compared to a general election.
And I wonder if it doesn't go up.
But I'm wondering, do you foresee this 832 question bringing out an influx, or are people just kind of...
We have noticed, we've done quite a bit of analysis of the past few 4 or 5 election cycles, and you do see a higher chunk of particularly independent voter participation when there's a ballot question on the June primary.
Independence.
Out of the last 4 last 4 primary elections in Oklahoma, not presidential, but everything else, the 2 that had ballot questions on them, that was 2018 and 2020, saw much higher independent voter participation than the 2 that followed, which didn't have any ballot questions at all. So I think you'll see higher. I think what Bob brought up earlier will be very interesting, since the Democrat Party's not allowing
Well, we got to be
independents
careful.
this time.
I heard that on the local news, yes, but on the other hand, I haven't validated it.
No, no,
And
yeah.
Don't stake my reputation on that.
No, independents will not be allowed to vote in any party's primary. I think even the Libertarians, I don't think, renewed
Oh,
that.
so that is the case.
Because they
Yeah.
are their own party.
So that's going
Right.
to hurt.
Yeah.
That would, if they could, it would help us.
That would actually keep the vote down.
So,
I think you will see a lower vote in all likelihood, because none of the three parties this time are allowing independents to participate, whether people think they should or not.
Now,
There's
is there a part
healthy
that
debate
our
on that.
legislators can play in this?
I think it's important for every Oklahoman who feels strongly about this to communicate with their friends and neighbors about it. I was amazed. I had never seen anything like what thousands and thousands of Oklahomans did a few months ago to encourage their friends and neighbors not to sign
Yeah.
a petition to put something on the ballot.
Right.
I'd never seen anything like that in Oklahoma. I'd heard of it in other places, but never here. And I think 2 years ago, a huge number of Oklahomans were encouraging their friends and neighbors, hey, pay attention to those three justices who are up for retention on your ballot in November, those state
That was
Supreme Court
amazing,
justices.
wasn't it?
I'd never seen anything like that.
Move the dial.
It was incredible. I think it's important for folks to make sure their friends and neighbors and loved ones and family members who are voting know, hey, there's going to be one state question on your ballot. It would bring in one of California's major economic mistakes into our state if it were to pass on the
So
minimum
what our
wage.
viewers really need to understand today is that the power is still with the people.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Oh yeah.
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 Let me make a recommendation. Wednesday night, this will be posted tonight on Monday.
Okay.
But Wednesday night, OCPA is having their annual banquet at the Cowboy Hall of Fame,
Yes,
which
sir.
is now called the Western Heritage Center. You know, it shows
Yeah, it's
how
a
far
very
back
long
I
name.
go.
Yeah.
And but anyway, Governor Stitt will receive an award from
Yeah.
OCPA.
Yeah.
And I believe that we need to ask Governor Stitt if he's going to use his bully pulpit
Okay.
to educate the people of Oklahoma on the danger of this. I have his cell phone number
I believe that.
and his email address. I've written my own document that incorporates a lot of things, and I'm
Love
going to email that to him and just urge him to understand how dangerous it is, and we need him out on the bully pulpit. And by the way, I have a friend that owns a business that bought a table there.
Okay.
And the guest speaker is Emily Compagno, seen on Fox
Oh, yes,
News
yes.
all the time. And I found out I even get to go to the reception, so I can't
Oh.
wait. And to be at that, I don't know if the general public can still get into that or not. I think maybe the deadline.
They don't always let me in.
Yeah,
so.
okay, well, I'll let you know how it was, Dave.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
All right, Dave, allow me to make another statement through by means of a question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned the idea of the three western states, having this thing for years locked in, higher minimum wage and all that.
Yep.
At the same time, I hear in LA where they have, there's a fair amount of rent control going on.
Sure.
And at the same
Yeah.
time, it's the eviction rate, in order to keep it down, the local government's actually preventing evictions from being able to occur. They're slowing that down. So it's diminishing property rights in a whole bit through this.
Yeah.
Why would all those steps be necessary if they have this elevated minimum wage?
It's a great question. I think it's why sometimes people say, well, if we're going to raise it to $15 an hour, why are we stopping there? Why don't we raise it to 20 or 25? And it's a very interesting direction to go with the conversation, and it does reinforce that if you inflate prices and costs on small businesses and big businesses, that everything will just stay static and prices won't go up. And employers won't have to make different decisions with different criteria than they do right now. A big business who has national or international presence has shareholders that they have to answer to that demand profitability. If this goes up, minimum wage goes up in a state arbitrarily, regardless of whether that person has any experience or not, the shareholder is going to be putting more pressure on that international corporation to replace that person with a machine so they can have
Yep.
maximum profitability. I don't like that. It is what it is. There's nothing in State Question 832 that says Walmart's not allowed to do that. Walmart cannot replace somebody with a machine if State Question 832 passes. That's not in there. If it was in there and it could be enforced, I suppose it would be a very different conversation. If it had played out in those West Coast states differently than it actually has on jobs and prices, which are really the two most important things I think about all of this, are what's going to happen to jobs and what's going to happen to prices. If the experience in those places that have been doing it for a decade or more had been different, or even if it just stopped at $15 an hour, didn't keep going, I think that's a very, very different conversation than what we're talking about here.
It is, and all this government regulation, using the government to do good deeds, using the government to manipulate, control our environment, so that it does kill incentive. The people may not like this term, but the reality is, a hungry belly is a motivator, and it's one thing that everything has its place. If someone is in need, it's up to us as individuals to take care of them privately. Just go to the individual and help them. It's something we should be doing on a regular basis anyway. But you can tell whether somebody needs help or if they're lazy or just looking for something for nothing. You can see that. The government is blind to all of that. They don't see it. So it's simply not the best mechanism to solve these kind of problems. And the same thing with helping those who need a help up. All right. It's we should do this personally. I'm rambling now. Go ahead.
I think there's so many things that, if the evidence over time was that if government will do this, things will be better, and things got better after government did this, then that would have to be addressed and that would have to be acknowledged. But the experience has been in the places that have been doing this the longest that things haven't gotten better. They've gotten worse. For people at the low end of the wage scale, they're more likely to lose their job or have their hours slashed or be replaced with a machine. And prices are going up on everybody, whether they had their wage increased or not. Senior citizens on a fixed income, not able to work anymore, their prices are going to go up
It's
because of this.
devastating to them.
It just is what it
Dave,
is.
we really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you so much
today.
for the chance.
Yeah.
And everyone out there, please download this and make copies.
SQ832killsjobs.com.
SQ832killsjobs.com. Download it. Make 10, 20 copies. Give it out to your family and friends and everybody you can think of.
Yeah.
And we've got to stop this. And I believe, Dave, you told me that only one state by a very narrow margin has ever voted down something like this. All the other states have voted to pass it. Well, this is Oklahoma.
Yes.
And we're going to work real hard to make sure that another state votes it down by a much larger, hopefully, margin than, the one state that barely did that.
Yes.
So
We
thank
have-
you so much for coming. And up next, we're going to have Stark Davis on our Wednesday program. And Stark will be talking about the need to have better congressperson in the 5th District and the reasons for that. And then the last 20 minutes of the next of Wednesday's program, Bob and I have been working on an issue right now to try to prevent a Article 5 convention at the federal government. But right now, last week, a bill was passed with both the leader of the House and the Senate promoting a constitutional convention for the state of Oklahoma. Now, we believe we need to refine our Constitution.
We do.
When our Constitution...
Our state constitution.
Our state Constitution. When our Constitution, in our Constitution, regulated the flashpoint of kerosene, that
was too much?
your Constitution is a little bit too large. And but the point is this, who are going to be the delegates? How are they going to be chosen? How many? How's that going to work? And I actually, 35 years ago, attended an effort when Governor Bellman was in office to do that. And lo and behold, the chairman of that committee was Andrew Tevington, who at the same time was the president of the ACLU in the state of Oklahoma. So we're real concerned about who would do this and what the outcome might become. So that will be our Wednesday program. Folks, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you Wednesday.
See y'all next time.